they brought me a new desk, and I'm putting my desk together. And the owner comes in and he's like, man, I'm sorry, but you can't work here. And I'm like halfway through this desk. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Well, the guy you just quit from just called me, and we all know he's the real deal. And he just told me he'd be ashamed if my shop burned down tomorrow.
Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, today's an extra special day, and we got, not only do we have Mr. Carlton with us, and he showed up and surprised Hip and I, and so we switched gears and decided, episode 1 of The Guardians was Hip's story. We've never really fully told Josh's or mine. Today we decided to go into chapter 1 of Josh's story and how tattooing really all began for him. This was pre-social media, pre-Google, pre-YouTube. Just a boy with a dream and a desire trying to figure this out on his own with no help. The tenacity that Josh has and everything he's overcome and has pressed forward towards the mark of the high calling in his own soul to be the best tattoo artist. He's been through so much. Today's episode is inspiring. Tune in. Thanks for being here.
Hey, what's up, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another edition of the Tattoo Guardians podcast. And before we started, me and Matt were like sitting here going over notes of what this episode was going to be about, because we kind of planned last week if Josh was to attend or not, because he's been resting and getting right. And sure enough, I looked up and was like, Joshua Carlton's on the screen. And Matt let him into the Zoom call, and we kind of stared at it for a minute, dumbfounded. So that's a special treat.
Big
for
surprise.
Us.
A great surprise. We weren't expecting Josh, but Josh is with us today, man. Josh, good to see you, brother.
I'm super happy to be here. Feeling pretty good.
And just to let our listeners know, like, he already knows he's chill with us, but for him to like step into this, as soon as it is after he wakes up, he's doing it for you guys. So it fucking just shows like the amount of camaraderie, love, and respect he has for this industry and those anonymous viewers that we don't get to see all the time.
Well, yeah. I mean, my man just got out of bed, had a audacious nosebleed, had to clean that up, and since he's been sitting here talking with us, he already had to get up and go get a tissue for another nosebleed, but my man's in it to win it.
Yeah. I don't know why I had, what a dumb idea to get cancer. I don't know what I was thinking. Stupid idea, yeah. Like, hey,
you're lazy, dude. You just needed
do you want your nose to bleed for hours? Sign up now. Yeah. You want to feel like somebody shot a hole through your stomach? It's cool. All the cool kids are doing it.
That's so fucking punk rock, man.
Yeah.
Brutal. So, besides that, like, you had a fucking super dope idea, Josh, and I didn't know if you wanted to like inform our listeners on your idea.
Yeah, man, I hope this turns into a new segment. I was just thinking, I was like, how can we be more inclusive to our awesome listeners?
Yes.
And I was thinking, like, we want to hear your voice. We're always kind of saying, like, comment below on YouTube, but like we want to hear your voice.
Literally.
So check it out. So yeah, I think what I want you to do is I want you to go to the Tattoo Guardians podcast Instagram and literally make a phone call. And by phone call, I mean just go to message us, and there is a voice memo option.
Yes.
Go on there and just tell us what you want to hear. Ask us some questions.
Come on.
We don't know what we don't know, right? So call us up, message us, let us know what you want to hear, what you want to see, what you like, what you dislike, and we'll go through them. And if you're badass, we'll play that bitch on the air, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, you finally, thanks to Mr. Carlton, have an opportunity to be on the show with us. With your voice and your questions, your comments, your ideas. And like Josh just said, we're going to play you live on the show. If you make the cut, if you ask the right questions, right?
And who knows, that may even lead to an episode with you in it.
Man.
You never know.
That's right. What a wonderful idea, Josh. I can't wait to hear all of your messages. And selfishly, since I'm not a huge reader, I'd much rather listen to your voice. I'd rather listen to your messages and questions on audio anyways.
Yeah, so it's just Tattoo Guardians Podcast, Instagram. You should be joined up anyway. Hit us up, send us a message, and let's do this. I'm excited about it.
So good. Me too. Great idea, Josh. Jeez. Let's hope Mike might call us and be like, whoa, Horsey, we've got 3,000 voice notes.
Right.
Which would be a great problem to have. Yes. Awesome. Were you going to prompt me with the next step, sir? I just love it because you had this all planned out. Oh, hips winking. Okay. Again, we're so... was it episode 1 of the Guardian show? Was episode 1 your story, Hip? Or was that our story, me and you? Or
It was my story, and it unfolded into a bunch of other things. And it's funny because this morning someone messaged me and they said they just heard that, and it was very transformative for them. And to all the listeners, like, just must be a me thing, chasing perfection, because every time someone messages me about that, I totally fucking receive it and I appreciate it, and it validates it even more. But inside, I just remember like that was my first go at it, and I was just like, But often goes to show that my feelings are not always reality.
yeah.
So I'm glad we let it ride. And it was because of that show I refused to listen to any of our other podcasts unless directed by my 2 co-defendants here.
You just listen to one episode and you're like, that's the podcast.
Yeah. Only Hip story.
Yeah. It's all that matters.
But yeah, why were you asking about that?
Well, because it's been brought to our attention that some folks who really appreciated that and getting to know the dirt on you, the good, the bad, the ups and downs, where you come from, where you're at today, let alone where we're going. It's been brought to our attention that our listeners are curious about Josh's story and about my story. And so we knew eventually we were going to pepper each of them in. And today I think the world deserves to finally get even a closer sneak peek behind the curtains of the life of Joshua Carlton. You down with that?
Yeah.
You down, Josh?
Yeah, I'm down for sure. I'm down.
Awesome. Well, man, where do we even begin?
Let's start with your social security number.
Right. So you got to keep in mind, I've been tattooing for 33 years, so we're going to have to go to the Wayback Machine. We're going to have to time travel to a world of coil machines and dirty needle bars. You know what I mean? It's definitely, it's changed tremendously, you know? Yeah. And I think that's part of what's really interesting when I meet even tattooers like Hip. Sometimes I'll bring up an artist or some machine and Hip doesn't know about it. And it's like so ingrained to my brain.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I think he's joking. You know what I mean? He'll be like, oh, are you talking about this? I'm like, you're serious? You know, so I guess to jump in, yeah, I've mentioned before, but I've been lucky enough to tattoo for, it's like 32 or 33 years. It's somewhere in there. I started tattooing when I was 16, but I was scratching, you know what I mean? And like, I didn't even know what the word scratcher was. I didn't know anything about tattooing. I grew up in Corvallis, Oregon, and there was not even a tattoo shop in my town. You know what I mean? So I didn't really know like anything, nor did I really want to be a tattoo artist. It was just something that I just did. I think that, I know what it was. I remember now, my older sister, Jennifer, she started dating what I thought was a tattoo artist. She told me she's dating a tattoo artist. And what I pictured was this awesome, you know, phoenix on a back kind of thing. And she brings him over to the house and it's just like hot trash. You know what I mean? Like I had already been drawing. My father was an incredibly gifted artist.
So what's the criteria at this time, Josh, the year or around about?
Are we talking 1990?
Yeah.
I'm 48. I just turned 48. So I'm terrible at math. So
me too. I'm going to get out the calculator.
Look how smart. It takes 3 tattoo artists to add this up, by the way, just so you guys know.
I was just reading a message.
How do you even do the math? 48 minus
33?
No, wait. It's 2022 minus 48. 2022 minus 48 equals 1974.
I was gonna say, why are you subtracting?
That's when 48? I was born. That's when I was a baby.
Dude,
I didn't come out of the womb with a fucking pneuma.
Okay, so 48 minus 16 equals 32.
Well, that's how many years. So, dude, how about 48 minus 33 years in the game? We'll see how old he was.
Exactly. I should have been around 16 years old.
Yeah. Oh, you're still trying to figure out the year, though.
Well, while he's figuring that out, I'll keep talking.
I said 1990.
1990. Yeah, you were right.
I know it. Oh. He said 33 years.
Our next episode should be on math.
Right, yeah.
This episode apparently is.
Math. What even is it? Thank God I could learn how to tattoo, huh?
I know mags are odd numbers, but yeah, go ahead. 1990.
Right. So speaking of mags, there wasn't any, by the way, and we'll get into that. But so she brings home. Well, no, she didn't even bring home the tattoo artist. She showed me her tattoo, and it just said the guy's name on her back, which I later uncovered. But when she told me she had it, I pictured beautiful script or graffiti, and it was just like every scratcher tattoo you've ever seen. And I was like, that's what he I could do that. Where do I get a tattoo gun? At the time I called it a gun because I didn't know any better.
Right.
And she's like, well, he makes them. And it's like, actually, I have one in my room. And she showed it to me. And it was a homemade Walkman motor, guitar string. So I just waited patiently until she fell asleep that night, went into her room, and fucking stole that shit. And just because in my brain, I was like, free tattoo. Right? Like, I'm going to be the coolest kid. Nobody in my school. I don't know. I assume now, like in high school, people probably have tattoos. Like some of them have probably even pretty decent tattoos.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But pretty shitty ones.
Yeah, for sure. But nobody had anything. And I hung around I was way into the punk rock scene. Like I was this super gothic kid that wore the fucking eyeliner and shit, you know?
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'm going to tattoo this fucking moon and these bats on me. And it's going to say Wicca because I'm a witch, you know, and all this dumb shit, you know, and all the fucking girls are going to love it. But I immediately learned that tattooing is not fucking easy. And like, I had no idea about anything, right? So like, I didn't know what an ink cap was or anything. I literally took a roll or a piece of paper and I just crumpled it up, and whatever little crevices it made, that's what held my ink. I just poured my ink into the little pocket that it made, you know? I didn't know about sterilization. I didn't even think about any of that. Luckily, I didn't catch anything, you know what I mean?
Right. Do you remember if the needle or the armature bar, if you had a rubber band on that bitch?
Oh, no.
Yeah, there was so like bouncing around.
There was an eraser that was like offset, like just jammed on the motor.
Yeah.
So it was offset, and then the guitar string had a little bend in it, and it was like just stuck in there. And then you would take like a pen, and you would bend the clip part out, and the motor would just be taped onto that. Okay. So then I started going and getting like more mechanical pencils. Like, ooh, this one has a nice tip, and I started making like pretty nice homemade machines. I thought, you know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
And then when I showed my friends at school, they all wanted tattoos. So I was like, oh, fuck, I never even thought about that. So I'd sneak them in my window after school, and for $15, I would tattoo like the Mickey's B off the beer cap, or like Danzig, or any kind of punk rock, whatever. But by the time I turned 18, I was able to do that and pay my rent while everybody else had to work a real job. I had a little card table in the corner of my apartment, and by then I had switched to real machines. In fact, this is a kind of personal story, but I would buy all the tattoo magazines. I would buy like anything. If it said tattoo, I bought it. Even if I leafed through it and it was trashy, like it was bad work, I still bought it because I get obsessed. To this day, I get obsessed with whatever I'm doing. And so I was just buying I had stacks and stacks of books, and I would cut out the tattoos that I liked from Tattoo Magazine, and I would pre-stencil from the tattoo. I'd actually make my stencil off of the tattoo, and I would just hang them in my room. And when someone came in, I didn't know what Flash was, but that was what and I didn't even realize well, you're also being a piece of shit because you're stealing other people's work. Now, it was done horrifically, backwards. I don't think I did a straight tat, like the facing the right way for like 10 years. I don't know. Everything is backwards. I don't know why I did that, but it just looked better to me facing the wrong way. So I just did it. And now I look back and I'm like, because I'm only like an hour away from Corvallis. So there's like a lot of people running around Corvallis in their 50s that have terrible tattoos. I'm so sorry, guys.
Yeah, that's awesome, though.
Yeah.
That's fucking awesome.
Right?
I wished I had one of them.
Yeah.
But
Americana.
I was looking through the magazines and I saw on the back, it was like A1 tattoo supply, and it was like a tattoo machine, and it was $99. And I was like, oh my God, I think I can make that work. Real tattoo machine. I never in a million years thought that because I only had the homemade stuff.
Yeah.
So I ordered it, and I fucking could not wait. Like, there's no Amazon, there's no tracking. There's just a shady phone number in the back of this tattoo magazine, little tiny black and white ad. And I waited for like 6 weeks. And here's where I say it's kind of personal. I was at my apartment. I was actually having sex with my girlfriend, and I heard the UPS guy knock on the door, and I'm like, I'm out. I fucking like stopped everything. She was so pissed, like in the middle of us going at it. That's how obsessive I was. I'm like, I'm out. The fucking UPS guy's here. You got to go. And I didn't. Not only did I not buy a power supply or anything else, I didn't know you needed a power supply. So I just was like, well, I got to plug it in. So I'm looking at pictures of people tattooing, and I can see the clip cord, and I can see where it goes onto the binding posts, but I didn't have a clip cord. So I just took my mom's lamp and just cut the cord off of her lamp. And I just I kind of split it down the middle, and I twisted the wires, and I just wired one on one side, one on the other, and plugged it in, and immediately fucking just blew the machine up immediately. And never even got a chance to fucking use it. It was just like, fucking done.
Oh my God.
And so I fucking waited again, and I reordered another one, and with a little bit of knowledge. And now I had ordered some ink, and the ink had gotten there before the machine. The machine finally showed up, and I got a little power supply from a hobby company that was for trains, like model trains. And because I was just asking the guy, I knew if I said tattoo, he wouldn't listen to me. So I was like, I could tell the power supply had different voltage.
Yeah.
So I thought, and it did work, by the way, it did actually work. But my dad had diabetes. And so when he would shoot insulin, he couldn't shake it because it would make bubbles, right? And then you could possibly shoot the bubble. So I just grew up with that in my brain. So I was afraid to shake the tattoo ink up. So I would roll the ink in my hands, which did nothing. So I'm tattooing with one really cheap ink because I was a kid and I didn't have much money at all. And then I wasn't shaking it up properly. So at first I was like, well, black and gray is for me because color just does not. And plus it was a single needle homemade. Yeah. Well, no, I'm sorry. It wasn't. I'm sorry. It was a real machine, but magnums weren't even invented yet.
Man.
The magnums weren't invented, and if white ink was invented, it was only for mixing other colors. Mm-hmm. It was really thinned out. It was not what we have today, even close. Yeah. No ink was even close to today. The black ink was. And the funny thing is that actually, if you look back, what's being done today, black and gray wise, it could have been done in that time. Right. Color, no. So can you imagine going back into that time zone and doing like Bob Terrell dropping a portrait?
Yeah.
Fuck. People would have lost their mind. People would have lost their fucking minds.
Yeah. Yeah.
So because I had real equipment, the word got out pretty quick that I was like a real tattoo artist, which I wasn't. And I remember sitting with my girlfriend, and we were talking about one of her friends that I had tattooed these flowers around her ankle. And I didn't know that when you did a tattoo, that when it healed, it was different. I just thought you just did the tattoo and that was it. You're badass.
Yeah.
So my first bad heal, my girlfriend was like, yeah, I talked to Catherine and she's not real happy with her tattoo. And I'm like, what do you mean? She loved it. He's like, well, now that it's healed, the colors aren't there. And I'm like, what are you fucking talking about? You lying bitch, like just pissed because I was just, sensitive artist, right? And which is,
So were you a sensitive artist even before you picked up a machine?
I drew all the time. I drew my way through, like I just always drew all through school. I would sell drawings to kids. Like I used to draw like, it's weird. I used to draw like diesel trucks and like Bigfoot type of trucks. Shit that I'm not into at all, but like I like to draw. Like I would draw these diesel trucks with demon skulls painted on the doors and shit.
Dude, that's fucking crazy because I drew the same thing as a kid too.
Did you?
That's
draw. Awesome.
Yeah, I used to draw that and like maps of bombs, and there were Ninja Turtles on different levels of it because it was Nintendo. We didn't have.
I love how much you loved Ninja Turtles, by the way, just so you know.
Thank you. And I would draw these castles with like deer antlers and shit.
Yeah, I would draw like muscular dudes. I learned how to draw like, like how, okay, so today people will say like, I don't know how to draw hands. And I've always, as an educator now, I'm always like, it's all shapes and edges. It doesn't matter if it's hands or a plant or whatever. But I was in that mindset. So I learned to draw like a muscle guy. So I would just draw like these big beefy dudes with big ripped fucking abs and shit. I wish so bad I had any of those drawings. I've moved around my whole life.
Yeah.
I just don't have them. And I wish so fucking bad that I could have Mike pop one up,
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't have any. But anyway, so word got out that, well, first of all, I had to learn that I was scarring people up, scabbing them up, doing shitty work. And it still was a hobby. I never in a million years, I'd never stepped foot in a tattoo shop. I had no friends that had a real tattoo. So other than the magazines, I didn't have anything to go off of. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I started getting a little bit better.
Yeah, there was no YouTube. That's why I'm already so fucking impressed that you took such initiative. It just shows your fucking obsession, the compulsion that you were called to it. Because these days, I mean, no one would be able to do what he
Who
fucking
would have thought
did.
about going and getting a fucking train power supply?
But guess what? I remember because Josh and I are the same age. I may be a year or two older, but we came up in the same era. And back then, I know what he's talking about. Ads in the back of a magazine.
Yeah.
And they'd just be real small, But there was no shit, back then there was no Google. There was no YouTube.
There's no questions. There's no one you could even ask.
Yeah.
I remember there was an ad that said it was like $5 a minute to talk to a master tattooist about your questions.
Wow.
And I remember getting my mom's credit card and she's like, you can do $20. Wow. And I called him up and I just every question I had was like spring tension and like, why isn't my color going in? And
do you have to remember his name or who?
I don't. Yeah. I really would. I'm sure he fucking probably gave terrible advice too. Mm-hmm. Maybe not. Maybe you're listening, and if you are, then awesome. Call us up. But word did eventually get around to where I was like the one, because there was no shop in town. So I had a real machine. I was clean. I was smart enough to know, at least at the time, I would boil my needles. But then I started making my own needles. So I just made fresh needles for everybody. So there's no autoclave, but they were fresh needles.
You'd be surprised what a little bit of Dawn dish soap will do, though.
Right. And believe it or not, a company called Spalding and Rogers. I'm sure you guys are familiar with that.
Yeah.
They were on the back of every magazine. They sold plastic tubes. They were way more expensive than, now, but they were like a couple bucks per tube. So even then I was using disposable tubes and brand new needles. Luckily, I was smart enough to not fuck anybody up with some staph infection or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But so I was paying my rent, and I remember I finally was going to a concert with some friends in Portland. And again, never seen a tattoo shop, and we were just driving, and I saw a fucking tattoo shop of lights and these like tattoo, and my fucking heart was like, oh my God. And I literally was like, can you please just drop me off? You guys just drive around I don't care what you do. Give me 5 minutes. I have to walk in there. And I walked in there, and believe it or not, Paul Booth had just fucking left. just left from being a guest artist. But because I saw his flash and I was just floored. Yeah. And I remember there was this like demon skull with a bat wing, and I'd never seen anything like that. And I was just like, oh my God. And a guy was tattooing, and I was just like a moth to a flame. I was just every fucking thing I could see. And I noticed his machine was way louder than mine. And I was like, maybe I'm going too slow. I had about 5 minutes to just take everything in, you know. It was like being in a magic shop. It was like, even to this day, it was one of the most powerful experience. I didn't get, fuck the concert. I was just like, I went into a tattoo shop, you know.
Yes.
So my parents at this point had fully become aware that I was really serious about this. So they supported me. My mom actually was like supportive, and there was like a biker / tattoo show in Portland in like a month. And she's like, let's go. Because my dad loves motorcycles. I grew up on the back of a bike. My dad was never in a club, but he was very much a known club associate, you know what I mean, type of thing. So the bikers were constantly around my life. They had tattoos. That was probably also a big part of me wanting to tattoo, is seeing these, you know, Harley Eagles and these badass tattoos that, you know, they might seem hokey today, but they were badass to me, you know?
Yep.
So this was probably the biggest point in my career, my life, as far as tattooing goes, when I went to this tattoo biker show with my mom, and I got to see people working the booths. And I remember there was this woman, I don't remember her name, but the word painless was in it. It was like Painless Paula. You know what I mean? And I was like, what? Painless? And she's like, it doesn't hurt me a bit. Ha ha ha. And I'm like, oh, okay. Tattoo humor. I get it. Okay. You know, but I had tattooed my mom a bunch.
Wow.
And so my mom was like, this is my son. He's really interested in being a tattoo artist someday. And we just wanted to know if we could ask you, how do you do it? Like, what do you do? You know, is there school? Like, what happens? There was I don't think there was any kind of, because this was Corvallis, Oregon. So there's like the license, there's the tattoo schools that you have to go through. I don't think that was a thing yet. I think you just apprenticed, right? And so she said, well, does he have a portfolio? And I didn't, but she had work. And I'm like, well, here's my work live. And she looked at it and she goes, well, I don't see anything I'd have to cover up, which is actually a pretty good compliment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And she's got like cherubs on her and like some flowers. And even looking back now when I see pictures of it, it's not terrible. But what's funny is she'll have flowers like this big and then a giant signature of my name, like almost bigger than the tattoo.
Wow.
Like, because it was my mom. She was like, always sign it. So it'd be like a frog and Joshua Carlton, you know. But
I just fell in love with your mom, man.
She's awesome. She's very supportive. She's been from day one when she knew I was like gonna do it. She's been in my corner. Yeah,
that's huge.
But she talked to the woman with me, and the woman said, if he wants to move out to Portland, I've got a RV in the back of the shop, and he can stay there for free. And you know, he's got to come in every morning and mop the floors and do all these things. And I was like, yes, please, I'll do anything. And I'm not sure why, but that never materialized. It just never happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I just kept doing it on my own, and I got decent. I wish so bad I had pictures, but I got decent. And one day I was just walking around downtown. I was in Phoenix now. I was in Phoenix, Arizona now. And I ran into...
Is that because you moved there, or the family moved?
My family moved there, so I moved with them. So I'm walking around downtown, and I run into... I've moved a lot my whole life, so some of the stories a little all over the place. I'd be in Oregon, Arizona, Mississippi, Kentucky. My parents moved a lot. So when I went to Phoenix, I had lived there before. I'd gone to middle school there. Well, I ran into a girl that I like kind of had middle school girlfriend.
Yeah.
That I had, you know, and now we're I think I was 17. I was very young still, because I remember my very first professional job. I remember being 17. So I definitely was like still probably around 17. But anyway, I ran into her and I told her, she's like, what have you been up to? And I'm like, I want to be a tattoo artist. I do tattoo. And she goes, well, me and my fiance, we just opened a record store / like vintage kind of shop. And there's a space in the back that we thought about putting a tattoo artist in. And I was like, holy fuck. And she's like, yeah, if you just want to pay the rent, it's like a little space. And I went and looked at it. It was plenty of room. And that's when my very first shop happened. I called it Body Graffiti. And I had no idea what I was doing still. I still literally had a card table. I had like some skulls. I remember I had like a Sex Pistols flag real big. And just always carried these around with me. And I took magazines out, but I didn't cut them out or trace them, but I just hung them all over the shop to just decorate and just be inspired. There was like Timothy Hoyer and Marcus Pacheco, Paul Booth, Guy Atchison. These were all these big names. So they were just plastered on my walls. And I knew when people came in, I knew that the layman's probably thought maybe I did that work. So like, I don't want to say I was being shady because I wasn't lying to them and saying I did it, but I kind of knew it kind of looked like that.
Or at least your presentation was validating a little.
Yeah. And I think more than anything, I just wanted people to want work like that.
Right.
I was hoping so bad somebody would want me to do a Paul Booth type of demon.
Yeah.
So, their names are on it and stuff. So I don't know. I always just felt weird looking back that I hung these tattoos. I don't know. I always felt weird about that. So I'm just trying to explain myself, I guess.
You just tell your potential clients that those names are the names of the person that has the tattoo.
Right. Right.
Man,
one of the business mistakes that I made. So when I really first opened, I'm in the back of this record shop. So everybody that came in would just be like looking at boots and shirt because they sold clothes and records. They would just go, "Oh, look, a tattoo shop." And so they all meandered in. Yeah. And they would just, how people want to tell you, I'm going to get a squirrel running up one leg and back down the other leg with nuts in its mouth. I believed everybody. And so I just took a book and was like, what do you want? And I'd write it down and I'd be like, can you come in on Tuesday? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, oh my God, I got 15 appointments. Not one mother, no deposit, not one motherfucker showed up. You know what I mean? I thought I was about to be the fucking richest man. Like I thought, this is it. I've made it. I believed everybody. Oh, this guy's coming in. He's going to get a giant dragon going. No, he wasted my time, So I think eventually that just kind of ran its course and I wanted to do more things. And I remember, so then now I actually worked at that biker/tattoo show. So it came back around. I think it was yearly, but by now I applied for it and I got a booth. So my very first ever booth was at a biker/tattoo rally. And I was so unprepared. I didn't fucking bring stencil paper. I remember I had to borrow stencil paper from another fucking shop. And they were like coming over and watching me and they'd be like, oh, that's cute. Look, he's trying, I remember this guy said he wanted skulls around his wrist. And I remember doing like just a bunch of skulls. And then when I got to the inside, they didn't match up. They were like this. They didn't match up at all. They were supposed to come together. And it was like, because I just didn't know what the fuck I was doing.
Right.
And I was terrified because these are all bikers. Like everybody in there would have fucking beat my ass. And I was just this tiny kid that just hunkered down and was artistic. I was so artistic that saved my ass.
Yeah.
So like the tattoo would be chewed up and backwards, but like the shading was really nice. You know what I mean?
Thank God.
Right. So that saved me a lot because I definitely had people that were pretty upset, but it is weird looking back, like how little guidance I had,
shit. It's unbelievable compared to people today who fucking need everything for that. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's people today that we give them everything and they still total tally it up and come to the conclusion that it's not enough.
I couldn't imagine having access. I just couldn't imagine. Like, I think that's why I'm so into teaching other people and helping other people. I think that's the main reason, is because I just didn't have anything, so
Yeah. Dude, that's awesome.
so that was a good feeling to like have that. And then, life goes on and I'm tattooing, and I'm at this point, I'm obsessed with getting into a tattoo shop. And I would go around Phoenix, and like, it seems like today people are always hiring, but it wasn't even about my work. They were full. They just didn't have a spot. And then finally there was a really famous piercer in Phoenix named Steve Hayworth. Yeah. And he was known as, he did like the metal mohawk, like the first guy that did the piercings. That was a metal spiked mohawk. He was way ahead of his time and was very famous in Phoenix. And he was known for his beautiful piercing chops, but he decided to add tattooing. And so he put an ad out that he was adding tattooing. And I'm sorry. I had met him because my sister Jennifer wanted to get pierced. Wow. So I went with her, and we talked a tiny bit. And he's like, well, I'm opening a tattoo shop. You should come by. And so I literally was like early manifesting before I really knew what that was. Just like, this has got to happen. And I walked in, and there was other people there that are now famous tattoo artists. That guy Grime was there. Man. There was several tattoo artists that were there. At one point, Derb was there, but he was doing a guest spot.
Wow.
But I don't know if Derb remembers that at all, because I remember asking him, why do they call you Derb? And I think he told me some story, and I could be getting this wrong, but I feel like I remember it correctly, where somebody in his family called him Bird, and it was like a backwards version of that, like a nickname. I don't remember. I just remember meeting him, and I had seen him in magazines, so I was like, whoa, holy shit, this guy's like a famous tattoo artist, But anyway, I showed my portfolio. Mostly it was drawings, but my best non-backwards tattoos, I didn't by then have an actual portfolio. And for whatever reason, over all these people, he picked me. I don't know why. Wow. And so my very first real shop was incredibly luxurious. I had my own room. It was super high-end, expensive. I don't know how I got so lucky, because it was like very, very beautiful.
What was expensive back then?
Well, I remember, I think $100 an hour probably was really expensive.
Right.
I think I was around maybe $75 an hour at first. Mm-hmm. But what happened, this is where I fucked it up. And this is where, even today, Matt, your coaching has helped me, because even after all these years, this was the start of my really bad habits that crippled me a little bit. And most people don't realize this. They're like, oh, Joshua Carlton. It's like, you don't know the ugly foot, And so what would happen is, I was like in such a state of shock that I worked in this incredible place, but I had imposter syndrome severely. Mm-hmm. No idea what that was, but it gave me incredible anxiety. So somebody would come in, we'd have a consultation, and I would book them an appointment. This was not a walk-in shop. There was no flash. This was early, way, way before. Like, this shop was ahead of its time. Nobody didn't have flash. That's crazy, right?
Right.
So I would book them so I could go home and research it and draw, and I would puss out. So I would make an appointment, make somebody wait 2 weeks, take a deposit. Then I was too afraid to call them, because I was just a punk kid. So they'd show up all fucking ready to go, and I'd cancel on them. I would flip out, and I would be like, I would rather this guy was mad than do a bad tattoo. I can't do a bad tattoo on this guy. I don't think I'm ready. They've misjudged me. I'm not good enough. And I cancel. And I did it so much, I got fired. So my very first shop I ever worked at, I got fired from for canceling too much. People were like, you're just too flaky. We can count on you. And at the time, I was rebellious and I was mad. But looking back, they were 100% right. I just was so terrified to do a bad tattoo in that amazing environment. Yeah, I wasn't learning in my apartment anymore. These weren't my friends. This was real money, and people trusted me, and I couldn't bring myself to do it.
And did any guide, because you had no guidance. Now you're in your first ever epic high-end shop. And was there, even though they gave you a spot and a chance on the team, did it not come with guidance, or was there not a shepherd in there to like take you under their wing?
No, for a long time, I was the only tattoo artist even there. And the reason I got fired is because eventually they hired 2 more tattoo artists that didn't act like a fucking idiot like I was. And so they were like, well, these guys can take care of it. Josh is just taking up space. Yeah. And so it was a real hard blow. I was like, I'm not meant for tattooing. Fuck this. I'm not going to do it. I was married to my first wife at the time, and we had a little small child. And I was like, I've got to find something to make money for real, So I ended up I was a janitor at a church for a long time. I just took odd jobs. Yeah. And I would tattoo a little bit on the side. Wow. I never was I wasn't as serious anymore. I kind of gave up, and I would tattoo as a hobby. You know what I mean? Because I was just destroyed over it, And then I was like, okay, no, I'm ready. I'm ready to do this. I'm ready to I want to do this again. So I just got the Phoenix phone book is thick, thick like that. And so I just went to the tattoo shops, and just from the top, there's 30 of them at least then. There's probably a fucking 100 in Eugene now, but
wow.
Drink real quick.
Yeah. Gee.
But I just went and I just started calling shops, and I was like, hey, I'm a tattoo artist. I just wanted to see if you were hiring. I'd love to come and meet with you and show you my portfolio. And
wow.
No. And then this little real biker shop, here we are with bikers again, was like, yeah, we're looking for somebody actually. And I'm like, okay, let me come down to my portfolio. And they're like, nope, you need to come down and bring somebody, and they better like roses because that's what you're tattooing on them. And I'm like, what do you mean? And they're like, you're going to tattoo in front of us. I don't care about your portfolio. I want to see you tattoo. Yeah. And I'd never even heard of that. Right. And I was like, that's okay. Well, I didn't know anybody, but my mom.
Come on, you know what I mean? Man. Yeah.
So my mom is like, I would love a rose tattoo. So I show up with my mom, and I'm like, I'm about to blow these motherfuckers' minds because I was I was so into realism, right? And I spent hours and did what I thought was a beautiful rose.
Yeah.
I might be able to get a picture of that soon and have Mike pop it up at least on another episode.
Yeah.
But I'm like, here we go. They didn't say anything. They didn't guide me. They would come by and watch me and just walk away. It was a man and a woman, a husband and a wife. Real biker, hardcore, scary people. And was actually in a biker club. I remember him. Well, I'll get to that in a minute. Anyway, so I do this rose, and I think it's beautiful. It's super realistic. And he goes, nope, I'm sorry, we don't have a spot for you. And I'm like, what? Why? Yeah. And he's like, well, it took you 4 hours, and nobody that walks in the shop cares about all the fancy shit you're doing. They just want a fucking rose tattoo. And I look around at the flash, and I see how simplified everything is. It wasn't traditional, but it was simplified, more biker design.
Yeah.
And I had already gotten into really positive affirmation books and stuff. Yeah. And I remember reading you don't take no for an answer until it's been 3 times. So I said, give me one more shot. And so my mom actually has, bless her heart, 2 roses right next to each other.
Yes. On the same day or a different day?
On the same day, on the same leg.
God.
After that, I said, let me try one more shot. And I just did flash. I just did clean outline, clean shading. And he's like, that's a rose. Can you start tomorrow?
Wow.
And I was like, my God. So my mom got me the job, and still has those tattoos to this day. Jeez. And I worked there for a while, and that was the best experience for me because it was a really heavy walk-in biker shop. People would literally come in with their dinner plate to trace the curve on their stomach to get their lettering. They'd come in with a plate because that's what they had been, what their homies did. And so they'd bring the plate in. And so, I didn't know old English lettering, but it was you either get your ass beat or you fucking figure it out right now.
Wow.
So there was no canceling. There was no, oh, I'm sorry, I'm feeling not with these guys.
Yeah.
No, there was no they cured me of that because it was like, no, I'm going to beat your ass unless you do this fucking Grim Reaper on me. You know what I mean?
Damn.
So I remember doing that. I remember one time having to have the boss fix one tattoo. I did like a Mighty Mouse, like lifting weights, and I don't remember what I did, but I did something weird with the shading. I remember also doing a Daffy or a what are the little ducks, like the baby ducks, like it's like Donald Duck's kids
Huey,
or something.
Dewey, and Louie.
Yes. And I did one on somebody and his kid's name, and he came back the next day and he said he got in a bar fight because of me. And what it was, I thought they were joking because he had like a kid kind of tattoo, but I forgot to put the tail on it. So when he showed it off, they were like laughing at him. He's like, "You pushed out on the tail." So I just like did the tail and fixed it and everything. But I had a million stories of this shop because there was literally like next door was like a fucking fake jewelry shop that these like gangsters owned, not biker, like gangsters. And I'm not joking, bullets would come through the walls because they would get into it with somebody.
Jeez.
You know, I remember the owner of the shop giving me a business card one day, and he's like, if shit gets crazy with anything ever in your life, do not call the police, call this guy. And I was like, holy fuck, this is real, you know?
Yeah.
And I worked there for a long time, and then I felt like I was ready to grow, and I just didn't know real etiquette or how to be. I thought I was respectful, but looking back, I was very disrespectful. I went into another shop that was way younger and hipper, and like people were my age, and they were like, one guy did this beautiful Japanese work, and everybody was like young and energetic. And I'd been around these older biker for so long, and I really fell in love. And they were like, "Man, your work looks great. We'd love to have you work for us if you ever wanted to." And I just was like, yes. I didn't really think about like how much these guys had done for me. Wow, you know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
So I went in and I told them I needed to quit, and they were like, "No, you're not quitting." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" You know? And they were like, "We need you to be here. No, you're not quitting." Totally intimidating, bullied me. I thought about it all night long, and I was like, you know what? That's bullshit. And instead of being a man and stepping up, again, I was maybe 19, maybe at the time, not to make excuses.
Yeah.
Life lessons. I just didn't really know.
Yeah.
And I should have said, look, I appreciate it. I'll give you a few months notice, or I should have found a replacement. I should have done anything else. But instead, I did the bitch move where I fucking came in the middle of the night, packed my shit up, and left. Which I hate when artists do that. I've had it happen to me.
Yeah.
I totally regret it. Would never do it. You know, no one should do that. Just
I did it too, Josh.
Up. Yeah.
So yeah, I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah. You know, I'm being totally honest and vulnerable. I was just scared, man. I was fucking scared, and I was still scared. And it backfired on me because this guy was known in town for a long time, for years, as being this tough guy. So when I went to this other shop, I'm putting they brought me a new desk, and I'm putting my desk together, and the owner comes in and he's like, "Man, I'm sorry, but you can't work here." And I'm like halfway through this desk. I'm like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
"Well, the guy you just quit from just called me, and we all know he's the real deal, and he just told me he'd be ashamed if my shop burned down tomorrow."
Yeah.
And I'm like, fuck. So I fucking literally never even started there.
Wow.
And then I got that phone book out again. Everybody was like, "Yeah, we're hiring. What's your name again?" "Oh, no, yeah, we can't hire you." Completely blackballed. Just nobody would fucking touch me. I was fucking poison.
Wow.
Yeah. So again, back to the fucking grind. So I just didn't start out right. You know what I mean? I started off with enemies, and like looking back, a lot of it was my fault. I definitely feel like people were overboard about it, but hard, tough lessons for a kid. You know what I mean? And finally, this new tattoo shop opens up, and they're not from there. They were from Detroit. And the guy, again, biker, the guy's name was Harley Dan. And I was like, fucking bikers again, here we go. But I grew up with him, and I did connect with him. not them. I grew up with bikers.
Yeah.
So I went in and I'm like, you're going to be honest and upfront. And by then, I'll be honest, I was good. My portfolio was strong. And I remember meeting him, and I showed my portfolio, and the first page, he goes, "Who taught you to tattoo?" Like he thought maybe I'd been connected to, and I said, "I'm self-taught." And he's like, "This is unbelievable. This work is amazing," Wow. And he was really good. He was really good. He had all kinds of awards and stuff. And he was really impressed. And he's like, I definitely, you got the job, man. And I said, I need to be upfront with you. I told him everything. I said, I've made a mistake. I'm blackballed. Nobody will touch me. And he goes, I don't give a shit about that. He's like, I'm from Detroit, where I live this shit every day. I'll handle it. And I'm like, okay. And it got to the point where I'd be tattooing and I'd hear a Harley and I'd be like shook. I'd be literally like, fuck, here we go.
Yeah.
Nothing ever happened. The guy would send me like weird hate mail and shit. Like he went a little overboard, and like I could go much deeper into it, but he would send me like legit hate mail.
Wow.
Like this, because I quit tattooing at his shop as a kid,
Right.
But for years he would do it. He sent me pictures. He would send me pictures of like suicides, like a guy jumped off a building, and it'd be like, do it.
Wow.
So I would get a box in my mail of shit, of literally shit. And it would be like Joshua shit fingers. And I would open it up and it would be a box of shit. And it's from this guy. It got to the point where I had to call the police.
Man.
Because once there was like the actual violence and stuff, you know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
Joshua shit fingers.
Right?
Man. Wow.
So it's so weird. Like even honestly right now, just telling these stories, looking back on it,
Yeah.
it's so crazy that I kept going.
No shit.
You know what I mean? So like when people are like, hey, thank you for all you've done for tattooing. You've helped my career. Yeah. I'm like, I think about how crazy what I come from, because this is just a teaser of all the shit that happened in my life.
Yeah.
But it was a long, dark road a lot of the times, and I just think that I love tattooing so much that it still overrode, and I still was like, I'm gonna fucking do it. The more you tell me I'm not, the more you tell me I'm shit fingers, whatever, I'm just going to fucking. My goal was be so good they have to deal with you. Like they can talk all they want, but they have to deal with you. And I think that's where my drive came from.
Dude, and I'm pretty sure you hit that fucking goal.
So again, I think that's why I'm so eager to help people.
Yeah.
Like people should have some tough stuff in the beginning, because I don't want to be a gatekeeper, but not everybody deserves to tattoo. Right. Maybe I didn't deserve to tattoo that early.
Right.
Maybe I should have taken a different route. It doesn't matter, because it is what it is, right? But
dude, I don't know. At one point, it reminded me of Michael Jordan's story because he got cut from his high school basketball team. Michael Jordan did.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? And he went home and cried like, one of the greats of all times. When he was young, like you, Josh, got cut, got blackballed, and said, "No, we ain't hiring you. You ain't making a cut."
Michael Jordan, that's crazy.
Yeah, and Joshua Carlton got cut.
Yeah. From my first fucking job, my first shop.
Yeah. It's awesome.
I remember,
maybe a test for you, those of you that say you want a tattoo. If you're having sex with your girlfriend and the opportunity shows up, if you don't stop having sex, then you don't really got what it takes. Man, right there, You
think you got what it takes? Like, we're about to test you. It might be the UPS guy at the door. Who knows?
Yeah.
Pinch that shit off.
I love that.
I'll never forget. I still think about like what a horrible dick move that was.
Literally.
To that girl.
Dude, I'm like listening to this story and in awe and thinking of like these time periods of like where I was at and just the contrast in it, because I remember seeing those what the fuck do you call them? Those shrimp, the brown shrimp that were always in the ads of magazines, but I read a lot of comic books as a kid.
Right.
So it was like, I don't ever remember really seeing tattoo machine articles or like
ads
ever really being in having any. Tattooing just appeared to me when I turned 18, and I was like, oh, tattoos are what people get.
Right.
And I was like, and I like drugs, so
Did you draw then back then at all?
Yeah, I've always been an artist, and I always loved to draw. Once I got into middle school, I did like Jimmy Page and Robert Plant portraits, Jim Morrison, Robbie Krieger, like all my favorite classic rock bands. And had a couple awards and like being noticed a little, by teachers and mom. Of course, I'm the best artist in my mom's eyes.
Right, same here.
But
I wanted to put that on a business card. I wanted to be like, voted best tattoo artist for 32 years by Josh's mom.
But that's why it speaks to me when you say tattooing chooses you, because like it just wasn't ever in the cards for me. And then just going to prison. And it's funny you said Paul Booth just guest spotted at that shop, because there was a guy that had the Paul Booth sleeve in prison like the first week I was in there, and it was the Jesus being crucified with the evil fucking priest and shit, and they're all like lingering around him, and I just remember being starstruck, like, you can tattoo people on people, get the fuck out of here.
It's mind-blowing when you see it for the first time. It's mind-blowing. Like, I wish you guys that are newer, that see this shit on Instagram every day, I don't know if you're getting that magic, right? When we saw it the first time, and they would like move, and their arm and the tattoo would move with them, I would just go home and be like, it was like I got punched in the stomach. I wasn't ready to experience that. Like, I don't know if people experience that today. But I would see a tattoo for Stefan, for Paul Booth, and just literally be like, it would take my breath away.
This type of talk, which Josh has always been this guy, to me, like, embodies what the definition of a true fucking tattooer. So much so, it makes me question if I truly even am one. You know what I'm saying? I'm a tattooer, but have I been on Josh's level? I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't compare, but I'm saying, like, he's fucking true, cut from the cloth tattooer through and through, to the point it makes me question if I even am the real deal.
You're definitely the real deal. I'm very obsessive. Like, I'm always into something new, and I can't just dabble. Like, I'm still doing the t-shirt business and everything, but I have recently, so I was a photographer for a long time, and I mentioned it before, but I've really fallen in love with film photography again, and buying these old cameras. And I'll wake up in the middle of the night because of my chemo stuff, and I'll be like in cold sweats, and I'll feel like shit. And I'll literally think about my new camera, and I'll be like, like a little dopamine hit from my camera. And it's like, it's not tattooing, and tattooing will always be my love, my biggest love.
Yeah.
But that I'm pretty obsessive over my photography, and you guys will be seeing some posts at some point. And I know that the world wants to see my tattooing, and they'll, just like my music, people will be like, that's cool, man. And I don't expect it to be the same. There's a different audience for that. However, I do truly believe in photography helping tattooing, learning the values of because I develop in a dark room, my own dark room and everything. So you get to watch it unfold. You put the paper in the tray, and you watch this beautiful image come to life. And it's a lot like tattooing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but anyway, so like, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't really change anything, but I'm unhealthily obsessive with this stuff. But I think, to be completely honest with you, I think you got to be a little crazy to really fucking be where we want to be, right? Everybody I've ever looked up to, I guarantee you Michael Jordan's a little fucking crazy.
Yeah.
How could you not be?
Right.
Right? Because even when I see people that are at a high level, but there's something, they're still real interested in going to the bar instead of going to the books. You know what I mean? And I remember I've talked about it on the show before, when I got Guy Aitchison's Reinventing the Tattoo.
Yeah.
It might as well have been handwritten Bible from God himself.
Yeah.
Like when he handed it to me, I think he was glowing, you know, and I remember I would just crack open the page and just read like a little blip. And I was just like, I'm not ready. I need to write. I need to go home and sit down and be comfortable. I'm not ready. You know what I mean? And people will buy books like that now, and they'll kind of read it and it'll go on their shelf, and they'll, not that there's anything wrong with having a life outside of stuff, but I was just fucking blinders.
Jeez,
you know?
dude. So good.
I see it in my daughter. She's, you know, we just toured her college campus, and I don't care if she says she's going to be a chef, a tattoo artist, a fucking gymnast. I believe it. Get out of her way. It's fucking going to happen. And it's really interesting when I see it happen. I'm like, where did she get that? And Nikki will just look at me like, are you kidding me? You know what I mean? So,
yes. Ooh, that's inspiring, man.
so if you're out there and you feel like you're a little bit crazy, you're probably on the right path.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Jeez. You know, in the beginning of this, when Josh even asked you, like, were you obsessed with, you know, art, or what did you ask him if he was a sensitive artist before he even started tattooing? He said yes, but you said something along the lines as you always drew through.
Yeah.
You know, and I appreciate that, because even the symbolism in that, it just seemed like your art has carried you through any fucking storm, through really or over any obstacle. You've always created and drawn through life.
Yeah, because it would always make me enough money for when I was a kid. Like, my parents wouldn't, I don't know, they were great. My mom was great, and I feel bad if she's listening, but like, they didn't do things like pack my lunch for school or go to my school plays, or, you know what I mean? They were awesome, but they were also like, and it just did their own thing. Yeah. And so I would need lunch money, and I would just draw like a fucking truck or whatever, and somebody would usually give me $1 for it. Wow. So I could get my school lunch. And then later on, I was like, okay, girls like it if you're funny and you're artistic. Boom. You know what I mean? So now I'm like at that point in my life where I'm into girls who I'm going to like later on get a tattoo machine in the mail. And anyway, but art was just always there for me as like my hip probably was the same way. You know what I mean? It was my drug. It was, I don't know. It just, my father was an exceptionally gifted artist. He did it for a living. He drew for Hallmark, and he always used to say that I'm way better than he ever was. But I remember being a kid and looking through his portfolio and thinking he was the best artist that ever lived. I wish so bad I had that and can see it today. I remember him drawing like these cars from the future, and he drew a lot like Frank Frazetta. Frank Frazetta, sorry. Boris Vallejo, those kind of, you know what I mean? Yeah. I said Franzetta because I used to have this client that would always call him Frank Franzetti, and we would always be like, how are you getting it so wrong? Now I just said it. And of course, now I just said it wrong on the air. Frank Frazetta. But, you know, you find these artists that you like and you want to emulate them. And that was what I did, but my dad did it before me. And so I'm fortunate that I had this gift, you know, and I do believe it's a gift. I do believe I could teach anybody to draw, but if you don't have that crazy side, that passionate side, I don't know if you'll get to that level of whatever that level, even there's a different look, right? You know what I'm talking about. You see people that can draw, but there's something not there. And then you see a passionate artist paint in these brush strokes, and you're like, I know it's a portrait, but that brush stroke on the collar fucking sells the whole thing. And that's always been my goal. How do I make it to where somebody goes, I don't even care about art, but I really think that's beautiful right there, and I don't know why. I kind of live in that area, you know?
Yes, you do. You fucking do, man. Oh, it's so good. So good. Jeez.
I feel like it was a little long-winded, but I hope you guys pick something up from my journey so far.
Yeah, right. We covered 3 of his 33 years.
Right, yeah. There's a book in there somewhere. There's a book in there somewhere for sure.
Oh my God. Yes.
So when you called the cops on the guy that you quit working for, did like, or is there any like long stints, like, I don't know, 20 years down the road, you received another letter of hate mail, or maybe like he was like, you know what, I had you pegged wrong, good job, or anything like that?
No, but what happened was I went from being a little skinny kid to being like kind of a bigger guy eventually when I put on some weight and stuff. And years later, like I hadn't seen him, I hadn't heard anything in 10 years. I was at a tattoo convention and everybody was watching this guy do this amazing tattoo, and it was really crowded. Yeah. And I turned around, and face to face, that man was right there. And in that moment, I said to my brain, I was like, I will get my ass beat in front of everybody, rather than punk out right now. So when I turned around and I saw him, I looked him dead in the fucking eye.
Yeah.
Until he finally fucking wavered. He stepped aside because I was like, I don't give a fuck. This guy could take me out. I'm not ever going to feel the way he made me feel again. So it was just eye to eye. Didn't say a word. I just stared. We stared at each other, and then he finally stepped aside, and I moved on. And actually, I never got a letter after that.
Nice.
So great question. Actually, I didn't really even put that together until now.
Wow.
But that moment, I was like, I will not be intimidated like that ever again.
Yeah.
You know?
And I was going to ask a similar question. It just made me wonder, out of any of those folks from that era who are still alive and fucking...
You all say it like he's so old.
No, I'm older than him.
No, you're not.
I'm not?
Nice. Why did you say you were 48?
I just turned 48 in June.
Okay. Okay. He's got me by a minute. Okay, cool.
I mean, he looks younger, but he's not.
Anyways, it'd be fun to know and see how many of those people from them have watched and know the Josh Carlton now. And it would be curious, any of those fuckers, does anyone know who the fuck they are now? Right?
Yeah. Yeah, because there was such a stigma around me that I would run into tattoo artists and they would be just weird. They would just be fucking weird. And I would hear stuff like, oh, somebody ran into me and they were looking at my back tattoo and they were kind of weird about you. And I was like, why? And they're like, I don't know. They were just kind of weird. I never could really get to the bottom of it. Nobody ever came to my shop and said shit to me. I just heard about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was always just super confused. And honestly, when I left Arizona, it went away because it was an Arizona thing. You know, but once I stepped away and didn't have that, it was much better. You know. But they just decided I was somebody that I wasn't. They had me pegged wrong. I don't know exactly.
Right. So it makes me curious, like Hell City, Arizona these days in recent years when you've gone back and fucking...
I'm always I'm always a little head on a swivel. There was one guy that was a fucking absolute dick to me. And the first time I went to Hell City, he was so chummy, you know, arm around me. Man, you've done a lot. You've come so far, you know.
Yep.
Who fucking knows, you know?
Right.
We were all dumb kids.
Yeah.
You know?
Man, dude.
Yeah.
That's fucking
What's weird is that a lot of tattoo artists came out of that area around the same time. That guy Grime was exactly the same time as me.
Yeah.
We used to call him Grimey is how I knew him, but Brett is his name. He's fucking rock star, like incredibly one of the most respected tattooer. He never had a problem. We never had a problem at all.
Right.
He was never anything but kind to me. So I don't want to put him in on that. I'm just saying more so like we did have a crazy amount of amazing tattooing coming out of Arizona.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Well, I think the reason why Grimey saw you and he saw that side of crazy in you that he too has, and it's like
because he has that exactly. You're right. He has that incredible drive. Yeah, and you're absolutely right. You know, I wouldn't call us friends because we never really hung out or anything, but we grew up at the same spot and we were around each other, but nothing but nice. And I have nothing but the most respect for his work. I've said it before. One of the things I really am impressed with Grime is he'll do a tattoo once. Like he'll just be like, this will be neat, and he'll do something new, and it'll literally give somebody a career. Somebody will be like so into it that they just take that ball He'll never do it. He fucking will draw it on a goddamn pizza box.
Yeah.
And give somebody a career.
Jeez.
They'll fucking that's amazing. And he's just on to the fucking next one.
Man.
He's the most innovative. I think he's the most innovative tattooer alive today.
Wow.
And just like me, how you get into other things. If you go to his Instagram, most of his pictures are of him racing motorcycles. So he's got that's his new passion. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like hardcore, like knee on the ground kind of shit, like that kind of racing. You know? But he'll throw out these he'll do a dragon or flames a certain way that nobody's ever done. And so when I say he gives a career, somebody else will pick up on that and just run with it. And they'll tattoo like that for 10 years. But Grimes gone on and done 50 different things. And that's to me is like, it's fucking, you got it in spades, man, you know?
Yeah. So good. And you're guilty of the same. There's so many dudes who've got careers from being inspired from you and your work.
That's been interesting. Lately, I've really seen it a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, man, that looks like my work.
So good. Josh says some of his favorite podcasts is when he learned something. Well, I learned something today. Several things about our brother Josh. I mean, I knew he came up, but it's good hearing some of those specifics, man. And I'm impressed that you remember the timeline. It's like, again, when you were talking about it, I could tell. I almost felt bad for you. Like, did you get that sick feeling in your stomach when you were, I mean, you took us there.
I still feel it.
Yeah.
What I fucking like is he is the old dog, right? And a lot of times, and it's very unappealing to me, and I'm even guilty of it my own self, but like, those fucking hardened tattooers that went through the fucking bullshit and are like assholes or fucking, hey, back in my day, motherfucker, and like not ever giving anyone a chance. And you came from that. But like you are fucking willing to teach, and like not only that, but new things that are being adapted into tattooing. Like you're not like, you got to learn to fucking jig your needles before you can fucking ever use a rotary.
Well, yeah, because a lot of those dudes, their work hasn't changed in fucking 30 years either.
I wanted to break the cycle.
Yeah, you did.
One of the best things that I saw was at Evergreen this last one. A real prominent local tattooer, really good friends with, but very hardcore traditionalist. He said that he'd been listening to the podcast and he just fell in love with it. And he's like, and I'm like, what are you up to? What are you doing? And he's like, I'm walking around and I'm looking at portfolios, because normally I'd be like, those fucking kids, and I don't even know what they're doing.
Wow.
But because of the podcast, he's like, I'm walking around and I'm watching them and I'm seeing that they are doing something and they are pushing the envelope, and maybe it's time for me to listen and watch.
Wow.
And it was all from the podcast, all from us giving him permission to not just walk around, man, because we can all learn so much.
Yep.
We're both about to leave for shows. I got 208. Matt, you're going to Vegas.
Yep.
We are going to come back with knowledge.
Yes.
Yeah. How exciting is that?
Yeah.
We're gonna go and give knowledge. How exciting is that?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that we've all put ourselves in positions since the podcast. I think we've all taken our role much more seriously.
Yeah.
Like something that came natural to all of us. Yeah. We came together and like, without even really planning it, we've really stood up into our role of like, okay, we need to educate and share what we have. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Like, I know you just had a 9-hour graduation ceremony with TBM.
Yeah.
And I know that HIP has absolutely fucking descended and like joined probably more than you expected in the beginning.
Yep. Yeah.
And just absolutely, we see you, HIP, for sure. Every message I get mentions everybody, but they always are thanking HIP. And so I want to personally thank you, HIP, for how much you've done for the, I don't want to call it a movement, but just for what we're doing, what our goal is. Leave tattooing better than we found it. Leaving tattooing better than we found it. It's so big.
Yes.
It encompasses so much.
Yeah.
You know, but by being vulnerable, being truthful and honest,
Yeah.
I think that will let other artists that are struggling know, well, fuck, if Hip went through that, then that's normal. It's okay.
Yep.
If Josh felt that way, then maybe I'm not a piece of shit and I should quit tattooing.
Right.
Maybe I should call Josh and talk to him.
Yeah.
Like, those are the things that I like how tattoo artists that we are in circles with, and anybody's welcome to join the circle.
Yeah.
But that they're really realizing, like, we've been looking at this the wrong way. There's a much bigger, better, brighter way. And I love it. I just love it, man.
Yeah.
You know?
And speaking of calling Josh, as of today, it's official. You can call us on Instagram and literally leave us a voice message on
Please
anything.
Do. I'm really excited about what do you have to say. Call us with their ideas. It's
gonna
great.
be real good. It's gonna be real good. And don't be scared. If you're listening and you really wished you could send us a voice note, but you're too scared, hopefully we've shown you how. Last week I admitted how I was scared, right? We all are. Do it anyways. We fucking love you.
Dude, fucking Josh just told you he got fired from the first shop he worked at because he was too scared to fucking do and tattoo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can send us a voice message if you really want it, and we really want you to.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be good. Who's going to be the first to be? Whose voice is going to be on our show first? Who's sending us that DM first with your questions, your comments? My God, thank you all so much for your faithfulness, your support, your love, listening faithfully, your comments, and now your voice comments, your voice questions is going to be powerful. Josh, thank you for being on the show today, showing up no matter what, and just sharing your heart and your story and letting us take a peek in the past and the beginning of your career. So inspiring, brother.
Awesome.
So inspiring.
Absolutely. That was fun. I enjoyed it.
Jeez. We love you, brother Josh. Big time.
Yeah,
love you guys too.
We almost need a fucking part 2, 3, and 4 to finish his fucking...
We do. Yeah. Let's do that.
I'll make a mental note of where we stopped at.
Okay. To all you guardians out there, keep lighting the path with us. Thank you. Send us your voice notes. We'll see you next week.